Nice to see you again on my channel. Let's dive into the new story and try to resolve it together in the comments below after watching this video. Get comfortable and let's begin. My brother and I have always had a tumultuous relationship. He's 6 years older than me, and to be honest, he had a completely different experience growing up than I did. My dad was an abusive and insecure man who used to bully and beat my brother ever since he was a toddler. For years, my brother had to grow up in an abusive household, with my mom being the only one giving him care and positive attention. However, she had to leave the house for most of the day for work. Although she was aware of the abuse and was also a victim of it, she was not in a place financially where she could leave with her son and make a good life for both of them. But when my brother turned 5, my mom finally got a promotion at work and had enough resources to divorce that horrible man. My mom and brother moved out and got a place of their own, and a few weeks later, my mom discovered she was pregnant with me. It wasn't exactly good news because even with her promotion, my mom was barely breaking even. But when I was born, she made sure that both my brother and I grew up well-fed and comfortable. We were never left wanting for anything, and I grew up with my mom's love and affection. My brother, in his teenage years, started to become aggressive and controlling. My mom was often called in to meet the principal because my brother tended to get into fights. At that time, he and I fought a lot in general. It almost seemed as if he was envious of me. He never liked seeing my mom praising me or being affectionate toward me. He would compare everything that the two of us were given. I didn't understand it then, but it must have been him looking for extra love and validation from our mother because of how much his abuser had undermined his emotional needs. He continued to create trouble throughout his high school, but was smart enough to keep his grades up and get into a good college to study computer science. My mom was ecstatic. Both my brother and I, despite our differences, loved our mother and wanted to give her the rest and luxury she deserved. Soon, I followed in my brother's footsteps and got into a prestigious college and chose to major in social sciences. My brother was miffed that I was going into a field that wasn't exactly known for stable employment opportunities, but I loved what I chose and decided to stick to it. I met my now wife in my final year of undergrad, and after dating for more than 3 years, we decided to get married. I did my master's in economics and landed my first job as a high school economics teacher. I love my job and my family life. There was an incident that took place when I was in my second year of college and my brother was working. We had this cute neighbor girl, Naomi. We were close friends with her and grew up playing together. Naomi was 2 years older than me. When I had come home for my semester break at the end of my 3rd semester, Naomi had surprisingly asked me out. I had always had a little crush on her, and we ended up dating for almost a year before we called it off and decided to continue as friends. What I did not know at the time was that my brother had been harboring a major crush on Naomi for years and had asked her out just a few months before I started going out with her. She had politely rejected his advances, and that would have definitely made him feel sad. But seeing me go out with a girl who had rejected him apparently infuriated him a lot. He bit his tongue about it for a long time, but almost comically picked a fight with me about it just days after Naomi and I had broken up. I didn't tell him that and instead called him out on his immature behavior. I had a lot of pent-up feelings about all the things he had gotten away with since we were young and ended up cussing him out a lot. The fight turned physical, and I ended up with a broken finger and a sprained forearm. He just had a huge bruise on his jaw. Our mom was extremely disappointed in both of us and didn't talk to us for 2 weeks. Overall, I thought our fight was the end of it, and I moved on with my life feeling a little lighter now that I had gotten my feelings off my chest. My brother became extremely distant from me after that incident. We spoke once every 2 months, and even when we did speak, it was awkward and laced with aggression. I just chalked it up to my brother being an idiot and moved on with my life. I graduated, got a good job, and got married. My brother did come to my wedding, and he seemed more open and receptive. We sort of talked a little, and I was happy that the weird standstill had come to an end. My wife is a graphic designer. She had a semi-remote job and often worked from home. We adopted 2 dogs a year after being married. I discovered I loved to teach and decided to go back to school for a degree in education. I signed up for night classes and became extremely busy. Pretty soon, in our second year of marriage, my wife and I started to fight. It was nothing serious at first, but I got the feeling that my wife wasn't really happy. I did my best to spend more time with her, but that didn't seem to be the issue. We started to fight so often that we became caricatures of our worst personality traits. I became short-tempered and impatient, while she became secretive and petty. This continued for months until I had had enough and signed us up for couples therapy. We had been together for quite a while, and maybe we were a little tired of each other, but never once did I doubt if I still wanted to be in this marriage, and I tried my hardest to make it work. But I guess my wife didn't feel the same, and couples therapy made that obvious to me. We were having some serious marital problems. This is when my brother re-entered my life. He had moved into the neighborhood we lived in and soon started to come over every other day. I didn't mind it. It was a nice relief from all the fighting. He still wasn't very friendly towards me, but my wife and he got along pretty well. We quickly fell into a routine of work, couples therapy, and having dinner with my brother every other day. My brother had gotten married years ago to his high school girlfriend. They seemed to get along well, and she was a sweetheart. Last I heard, she was pregnant. She had been there at my wedding, and things seemed normal between her and my brother. But my mom told me that the two had split up. Apparently, things had been volatile between them for a few years, and the tension had finally snapped, and she had filed for a divorce. As of then, they were separated. I felt really bad for my brother as I was in a similar situation and knew how difficult it is to sustain a marriage. I started to be nicer to him, and he too seemed to talk more to me and seem less angry. But everything came to a head just 2 months later. I came home early from work one day and saw my brother's car outside my house. I didn't think much of it and unlocked the door using my key. I soon discovered my wife and brother in my bed. All the puzzle pieces finally fit together, my brother's frequent visits and my wife's secretiveness and elusive behavior. My wife had the decency to wear her clothes and asked to talk to me in the living room. I was seeing red at the moment, and I asked my brother to wear his clothes. Once he was dressed, I punched him straight in the face. I'm usually never violent, but this was beyond how much I could tolerate. That bastard just smiled, and what he told me next still makes me want to puke with disgust. He told me that this was revenge for me taking Naomi from him. That absolute piece of work had held onto that one thing that had happened years ago and had decided that sleeping with my wife and ending my marriage was the appropriate revenge. I have no justifications for my wife's actions. I immediately filed for divorce the next day. I moved out of that place and moved in with my mother for a couple of weeks while trying to find a new place. When my mom got to know what happened, she didn't believe me at first. But after seeing how broken I was, she called up my brother. This was the first time I had ever seen her cussing. She ripped right through all his lies and explanations and finally called him out on his narcissistic, immature, and entitled behavior. She told him how he had ruined all the meaningful relationships in his life just to protect his fragile ego, and that there was no way she would ever forgive him for what he had done. I am really proud of her and immensely relieved to have her support through this. When my sister-in-law heard about this, she immediately rushed over with her baby girl and stayed with us for 2 days. I was glad to have at least a few people with me. It took me a week to become functional and a couple of months more to stop being overwhelmed by feelings of betrayal, disgust, and sadness. My brother thought he had won, but my sister-in-law came up with an amazing way to make sure that bastard got what he deserved. The divorce proceedings were in full swing now, and the custody battle was fierce. My brother was fighting for joint custody while my sister-in-law wanted sole custody. During this part of the proceedings, character letters are given by people close to the couple so that the judge can make a fair assessment of each parent. I submitted a truthful letter detailing my brother's impulsiveness, short temper, immaturity, and overall incapability to raise a child healthily. My mother did the same, and I think the lack of approval from the two people closest to my brother was the cherry on the cake that convinced the judge to assign sole custody of the child to my now ex-sister-in-law. My brother had obviously not anticipated this and almost managed to take a swing at me. Outside the courtroom, he was held back and restrained. I could see the humiliation and anger on his face, but I didn't feel vindicated. I am just happy that my niece will get to grow up in a healthy environment. My brother left the state and has relocated somewhere else. I heard this from my mom. He hasn't tried to contact me since the day in the courtroom. After a lot of thinking, I understood that a lot of his toxic traits are due to the abuse and neglect he faced, but I don't think it should excuse him for his actions. I don't think I'll be the first one to reach out and make amends, but maybe some years later, if he has truly reflected and changed, I'll be ready to forgive him. My divorce has been finalized. My wife reached out to me multiple times and even turned up at my workplace to apologize, but there is no way I can justify and forgive what she has done. I was genuinely trying to make our marriage work, and she just gave up. I am now a divorced man. I moved out of my mom's place and into a 2-bedroom flat very close to the school I work in. My brother has remarried. He didn't invite any of us to the wedding, and more alarmingly, it's just shy of a year since his divorce. I truly don't think there is any hope for him. All I hope is that he doesn't abuse his wife and future kids the same way he had before. I also hope he is a better husband this time around, but I don't think that'll happen. Any feelings of forgiveness and brotherliness I was starting to feel about him have completely disappeared now. Abuse is extremely traumatic, and your brother should have received professional help when he was younger. I understand that your mother did the best she could, but I feel that since his trauma was never addressed or treated with sympathy, it led to him acting out and eventually developing a toxic personality. The whole situation is just extremely sad. I understand your brother went through something very painful when he was younger, but this doesn't excuse him for his bad decision-making and immature thinking. He was earning and could have reached out for professional help. It seems he uses his trauma to feel like a victim all the time and act out. As for your wife, it's clear that she has shown terrible behavior, and I'm glad that you left that relationship. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and surround yourself with healthy and supportive relationships. I am a 36-year-old female. My brother, Mike, is 53 years old, and his wife, Chloe, is 52 years old. They believe that the world should revolve around their son, Logan, who is 31 years old. They think that anyone who thinks differently is wrong and doesn't realize how special Logan is. Logan, Mike, and Chloe tell people that Logan does freelance work for a living, which is just a code for him being unemployed, playing video games, and generally living like a teenager out of school. Mike and Chloe handle all of Logan's adult responsibilities. They send him money every month so that Logan can pay rent and have fun. Chloe cooks most of Logan's meals and drops them off at his house. She also does all his laundry. Mike and Chloe even tried to get me to contribute money for a vacation in Vegas because I had recently taken a trip to Fort Lauderdale. They claimed that it wasn't fair for Logan to miss out on a vacation. I firmly declined because Logan is a 30-year-old man and I'm not going to pay for his vacation. Mike and Chloe consider my refusal to be selfish and awful toward my own nephew. They also expect other family members to cater to Logan in the same way and react negatively if someone doesn't revolve their life around him. As a result, our relationship is very strange and we keep our interactions superficial. We only see each other at family events. A few days ago, we were at a baby shower for our cousin. Mike and Chloe approached me specifically to criticize me for attending Alexia's, Logan's ex-fiancée, hooding ceremony. To provide some context, Alexia was given a list of marriage demands by Mike and Chloe. They expected her to provide 3 meals a day and do all the chores while working full-time. Logan had told Alexia that he was fully supporting himself through freelance work, but Alexia discovered during the hooding ceremony that Mike and Chloe were sending him money every month and taking care of his responsibilities. Alexia decided to end the relationship, but she and I are still friends. I told Mike and Chloe that I am an adult and I have the right to be friends with whomever I want. They started raising their voices, claiming that I'm disrespecting them by maintaining a relationship with Alexia after she abandoned Logan. They can't see that Logan is just an overgrown child and not as special as they believe. They may have deluded themselves, but it's frustrating that they are mad because nobody else is enabling their fantasy. Family members are divided on what I said. Some agree with me because they are tired of Mike and Chloe's demands that everyone's life must revolve around Logan. They believe that what I said needed to be said. However, others argue that it was supposed to be a nice family event, and even if I didn't mean it, I could have just apologized instead of causing drama. Am I Diego? Even if Logan had a diagnosis of developmental delay or any other condition, the goal would still be to encourage him to be as independent as possible. Eventually, this excessive care and catering to their adult-aged little kid will become tiresome. It will be a rude awakening for everyone involved. Not Diego. My brother and his wife have 2 toddlers, ages 3 and 2. Due to a recent divorce and financial difficulties, I have been living with them for the past couple of months. My brother's wife is not happy about me staying with them, but she tolerates my presence for the sake of my brother. However, that doesn't stop her from ordering me around the house and treating me like her personal servant. My brother defends her treatment of me and claims that I should do my part as well. I already do my fair share, but he thinks I don't do enough as a person living in their house. Recently, my brother's wife had a horrible stomachache, and my brother wanted to take her to the doctor. They asked me to watch the kids for a couple of hours until they came back, but I refused. I told them I didn't want that responsibility and suggested they either take the kids with them, call an ambulance so his wife could go to the hospital and he could stay with the kids, or call our parents or her parents for help. My brother insisted that I was right there and they were in urgent need. I still refused, saying that they were not my kids and not my problem. In the end, they took the kids and drove them to my parents' house until they returned. My parents called me and said I was being ridiculous for refusing to help. We argued about it, and they mentioned that my brother was very angry and that I should apologize to him and his wife when they returned. When they came back, my brother told me I had 2 days to pack my things and find somewhere else to live because he was done with me being a parasite in his own house. He accused me of villainizing him and his wife and not providing the slightest help or contribution around the house. According to him, I crossed the line by prioritizing my ego over their need for help in an emergency. I defended myself and honestly don't believe I did anything wrong. I told him they had the right to disagree, but they also needed to respect my thoughts and feelings. He insisted I had 2 days to either get my act together or leave. Feeling upset, I called my parents and cried about what my brother and his wife were about to do. They sided with them and said that I had it coming. They argued that I was living rent-free and shouldn't expect to be exempt from helping around the house. They understood that I may not want to watch their kids all the time, but in this emergency situation, I didn't even do that. They believed I was being unhelpful and immature by crying to my parents about it. They stated that my brother and his wife took me in, and this wasn't a last-minute situation where they just wanted to go on a date. It was a medical emergency, and they were genuinely in need and asking for help. They thought I had no valid reason not to help, except that I simply didn't want to. As a result, I made their emergency worse and delayed her getting to the doctor by making them drop off the kids. They found the suggestion to take toddlers to the doctor to be ridiculous. Guys, thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate that you have devoted your time to my work, specifically on this channel. If you subscribe to the channel, I will be happy. But if you decide to talk to me in the comments about this story, I will be even happier. Stay tuned for my next story on this channel.